Danny, you've described the bloody siege here by the Assyrians at Lachish. Now we are standing at the very spot where all of that went down. Tell us about what happened at this spot.
In the back here, you can see the top of the wall peeking beyond the debris. More of it probably runs just beneath our feet. You can imagine the Judeans here terrified as they're seeing the Assyrians advancing with their battering ram. This is the very place where Lachish was taken.
And that battering ram, the intimidation factor as well with those battering rams.
Yes, and people that are captured in the battle are impaled, presented in front of the defenders. This was a very, very big tragedy from a Judean point of view.
Yeah, big victory for Sennacherib, as you explained. He was gloating about the conquest of Lachish, but then the Assyrians sent a contingent and set their targets on Jerusalem. What came next?
On the capital, okay? Number one. This is number two. And the amazing twist in this story is that Jerusalem is actually saved. Sennacherib accounts that he goes against Jerusalem, and he tells us that Hezekiah, the king of the Jews, who did not submit to my yoke, I locked him like a bird in a cage. But he doesn't say what happens next. He doesn't say how it ends. And the Bible tells us indeed that Jerusalem was spared. An angel of God attacked the Assyrian forces, caused a plague. 185,000 soldiers are dead. That sounds a bit like an exaggeration, but something did happen to the Assyrian army so badly that Sennacherib decided to spare Jerusalem.
Wow, he abandoned that siege of Jerusalem. The angel of the Lord, God Almighty, the God of Israel, intervened according to the Bible. Jerusalem was spared, and then some good things happened under Hezekiah. Tell us about that.
Hezekiah, as a result, apparently recognizes the supremacy of God and enforces the religion of the God of Jerusalem, and any traces left of worship of Baal and Asherah are moved away.
Wow. So he moves against the pagan shrines in Israel. It's almost a revival of sorts, Danny, here in the land of Israel under King Hezekiah after Jerusalem is spared.
Yes, monotheism is crystallized in the context of the events of 701 BC.
Wow. And you believe this is one of the most pivotal events in Jewish history, how Jerusalem escaped the Assyrians. Tell us why.
This is when Jerusalem becomes a central city with a single worship. There are no more additional worship areas. And even here in Lachish, we found evidence of an altar gone out of use, and a toilet seat is put next to it. Apparently that area became some sort of a public latrine.
Wow. That's what they thought of Baal and Baal worship at that point. So the Israelites had a reprieve. After Jerusalem was spared under the Assyrians, there was a reprieve, and then eventually the Babylonians came. Jerusalem was eventually conquered sometime later.
130 years later, the Babylonians will return to this area. They will conquer again Lachish. There was a stronghold rebuilt around the gate area, and they will also reach and conquer Jerusalem.
You know the great thing about it, Danny, though, is that I don't see an Assyrian flag here in Lachish. I don't see a Babylonian flag in Jerusalem. I see this flag, the flag of Israel and the Star of David behind me, and that's a wonderful thing. The God of Israel is moving in these Bible times we are living in today.
We'll head back to Lachish a bit later in the show, but up next, Danny the Digger takes us on a fascinating tour of the Israel Museum in Jerusalem. From the Dead Sea Scrolls to King David to Pontius Pilate, you're about to see firsthand archaeological evidence for the truth of the Bible. Do not move.